You get me that list at all costs!
I wrote this because of you. You gotta do something for these kids.
Get out there and bring them in! They're done!
In the history of crime, few have been so foolhardy as this striking young woman and her Uzi-waving partner, Queen's own Bonnie and Clyde.
It's good, right?
You worked with director Raymond on City Island, and then you come on board for this as an actor and a producer. So how did you get involved with the film?
Well, Raymond called me and said, I'm going to direct this piece. He hadn't written it, or else I would have known about it much earlier. But I'd like you to come on board, like we did with City Island, because we produced also together. But we sat down and had lunch. We started talking about what he wanted to, with the character that he wanted to explore, which was sort of like really be more interested in him as more as a grandfather and as a cook than a mob boss, you know. And I thought I said, oh, that would be very interesting. And then, so I read the script, and I started researching the real character. And then I said to Ray, you know, if you're gonna do that, we can't really play the real character, because you can't just create a guy and call him the real guy, because it doesn't mesh, you know. So it's better, I think, you just change the name, and you can use elements of a guy, and you can be free to fulfill what you want in this character, but you're not beholden to a historical interpretation.
Well, it's interesting because I definitely felt like we saw the surface, the tip of the iceberg of Big Al, and there was so much underneath. And given that you've worked with some of the great actors on other mob movies, what did they sort of teach you about building like a gangster?
But it's like any character. You have to, you know, what is the backstory? You know, who is he? What are his joys? What are his pains? And you know, try to find the parallels in his life to your own that you've experienced through life, and so you can fulfill the emotional demands of the character. We love the idea that this character started as an owner of a food truck, like the real character did. And his real tragedy is that he got involved in this world, kind of got sucked into it by chance, but he found that he was providing for his family in a much more lucrative way than as an owner of a food truck. All he really wanted to have a food truck and a restaurant in his life. But because of who he was as a person, and he started making all this money and growing within the organization, and what he thought he was getting in to protect his family and to provide for his family ended up being the thing that actually destroyed his family. He lost his son in a mob hit, and then now he's left with the son's young boy. And all he wants to do is to spend the last years of his life with his young boy and try to teach him as much as possible. The mob thing is like, you know, he delegates it to Sal, you know, Michael Rispoli, and you'll deal with it. I don't want anything to do with nothing.
Deliciously complicated and yet also relatable. That's what I enjoy
about
him.
And that's the kind of guy, that's the guy we created. So I was very, it was a great creative experience with Ray again to have the freedom to do that, you know.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. It was a
You're
pleasure.
welcome.